Happy for, or I'm not happy. Like for the way that's what. But I had already had COVID. I had already had COVID at that point, so I was like, yeah. You never did? No, really good. Yep, I got it. I got it once.
I don't know.
My husband got it once. My in-laws actually had the vaccine. My in-laws got it twice. And I told them it's because they got the vaccine after they. Because the vaccine takes your immunity and takes the vaccine. So they just ended up having it. You're no worse for 16.
Well, I end up not starting to that on Tuesdays. On depends. I do breakfast from the it is a long day because it usually starts at 7.
I know, right? It's not awesome.
Yeah.
I said, am I here for curry tails or was it just?
We had poodles.
I get it, like real dogs.
There were real dogs, preschool dogs. The auditors were there and like, who owns these dogs? Well, one was Diane Kingston's dog. I don't know who the other
Is
was.
this for living?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tom.
I don't remember who's name. So forgive me. And you want
Melissa.
Melissa? Yeah, I should.
Yeah. I'll make pizza meal for my husband.
Hi, Susie.
See, I saw the furry tails.
I know, I
sign,
gotta take it
And there
down.
were 3 auditors in here.
That's so funny. Well, they did enjoy the dogs. Since they had,
What were people on?
I'm sorry?
State monitors?
Yeah.
Where are they on?
Oh, they are,
Regular basis.
we have regular audits.
Or-
The usual.
Our financials.
Okay, I didn't know if you meant like a.
Oh, no, just a regular, looking at the numbers. The library is built with meetings take place there and stuff.
Don, here's good. Short spaces from town. Sometimes have 5 meetings. Including the kitchen.
Yes. and some vertical.
Right, so I need to see.
Yes, another one second. And,
Yeah, Melissa, I'm making a co-host. Never can get that done. Yeah, it pops back up right when I
There you go.
But now everyone's gonna hear. For a minute.
That's my fault. I had us muted. There we go. We're good.
Hello, everyone. Today is
Grace, are
July-
you on as Shutesbury host?
The meeting is until 6:15. It's 6
We,
o'clock.
the 6 we start and then,
Your presentation is
Things
at
are-
6:15.
I go ahead, Becky, we'll get her to,
Okay.
or whoever it is to.
Good evening, everyone. It is July 9th. This is the first select board meeting of the year. That is the reason I am opening. The reason I am here to work with the select board to appoint a chair or co-chairs. So I will do that by asking for nominations.
I nominate Melissa and Rita.
As co-chairs?
Yeah. To make commitments at that.
Okay.
No, we've been doing it successfully.
We just want to make sure, Eric, that you don't.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that you don't feel left out.
It's either the chairman or my marriage.
Okay, I got you.
Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
Okay, I will second it.
And would you like to also second Melissa? Because she
Oh,
can
okay, I'll
second you
second.
and you can second her. You can
Okay,
each
I'll second
your
Melissa.
own.
All right.
I
Okay.
guess, yeah. Second,
Okay.
second. Okay.
Very cooperative, so may I have, we have a motion to appoint, to elect two co-chairs, as we had last year, Rita Farrow and Melissa Mathews. Do I hear a motion? No, we have a motion.
Second,
Second, all those in favor?
Carol, I.
Make you, okay, go ahead.
Stalker, aye.
Make you so Neil, aye.
Okay, I now turn over the meeting
Yeah,
to our
thank
new
you.
co-chairs.
So I think it's your turn.
My turn.
Yes.
My turn. Carry over from last year. Last year technically. Okay, so let's review the agenda. Second, I have to make this disappear. So on the agenda, oh, yes.
I have something on the agenda for
Oh,
when you're
okay.
ready.
So let's see, we have public comment and then review select board minutes of 9:27, 4:23, and 6:24.
That will be
That
what
would
we
be it?
will not do.
Okay, we'll not be doing the minutes. Okay.
None of them.
None of it.
Okay.
tonight.
Then we have a knotweed proposal presentation, first of June knotweed. We have ECAC, which is the Energy Committee, oh, I did that.
Energy Climate Action Committee.
Energy Climate Action Committee, thank you, charge, review, and possible vote. Followed by associate planning board members, joint appointment for the planning board and select board for the associate members. The Google Calendar we will have to remove from tonight. I can explain a bit later about that. Shutesbury review appointment of a land use clerk candidate recommended by chairs of planning board. PFAS litigation contract. Select board review of Army Corps of Engineers update on 66 Leverett Road. Select board review of Amherst Town Council's letter regarding education funding. Shutesbury review of Lake Loyola voting bylaw. Town administrator updates, and then we go into an executive session for reason number 3. Any additions or Eric, Rita, that popped up in the last 24 hours here?
The only thing I'd like to discuss
48 hours.
for 2 seconds is just what our schedule is like, what is
I'm
it?
glad you brought
Well, you
that
got
up.
it right there. Never mind, say no more. You're so
I printed up
organized.
a draft schedule, so do we want to add that in here somewhere?
If we have time, that'd be
Okay.
great. Just
Or at
'cause I'm
least
trying to
hand it
figure
out.
out, I have my calendar, like, we have meetings, we cross them out, then we get off the schedule, and,
It'll
Okay.
happen again.
I know, I'm sure it will. But
Yes.
at least in the meantime, I'll delete the two.
No, that's
Like
good.
minds think alike. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we open it up to public comment? Does anyone on the screen or in the room have public comment? Yes, go ahead.
I'm Mary Jo Maffei, and I just would like to thank you guys for all the work.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn this down because we don't need hours. Minutes. Okay, so moving on, the select board minutes not, but the knotweed proposal and presentation. So this was from the Subduing Knotweed Coalition, wanted to give us some information and do a small presentation for us. Oh, more people coming on. Who would like to start and give an overview?
Me.
Okay. Can you make Pam a
Yeah.
co-chair so she can share? Yeah, when she makes your co-chair, let me just look at the participants here. Is it up there?
It should be,
Okay.
should be good.
So click share, and then it'll ask you what you'd like to share. So you can do your whole screen or your presentation. Did you open your presentation?
It is open in the, there it is.
Okay, so pop it forward.
I need to go to the,
Okay. And are you sharing your screen? Hold on one second, I might be doing something.
oh, you haven't shared, sorry. Well, I guess I have to do that piece,
And
right?
do you know the trick of the owl? You have to speak up and speak
At the owl.
at the owl.
Speak at the owl.
Not.
Uh-oh.
So you want to bring this, Becky, is that yours or?
I'm afraid that I am stopped because it was sharing my screen.
Okay. Click share.
Okay. I can click yes, right?
Cancel. Hang on one moment.
Let's search.
No, the red.
Okay.
Let's see. Hover over again in this direction. No, hover on the bottom of your screen. So click share.
Move to desktop, yep. Why does it have a?
Okay, it just wants to grant, it wants you to let it have access. So it's asking if that's okay to do the Zoom,
Right, and so I push
and then you
yes.
have to put in your password.
So I changed the word.
You do work one every 30 days. There's just no.
Oh, I did that, I think. Let's see, that's to get into my screen.
Okay, that's fine. So click mute, that's fine. No, you don't want to leave meeting. Do you want to send it, can you email it to me real quick? Or we can pop it up?
Yeah, or I can get it up on mine.
Okay.
Do you want me to share with you, Mary Jo? Are you comfortable with,
Yeah,
putting it on
I just
screen?
need to get onto the internet. I think if you go out of Zoom and you come back into Zoom.
That's what it said.
Right?
It said
wanted
to
to
go
close,
out and.
Yeah,
You can try that
I
again.
don't think you set up your picture out, so that's why it's not sharing.
Okay, so, well, how do I get out of, just,
Yeah.
X?
All right.
Okay, she's gone. Why do I have to
Mary
sign
Jo, are
on?
you in the
Sign
Zoom
do I?
meeting?
I don't see you
I
on
don't
the
have
Zoom
it.
No,
meeting.
she's got to get on the internet.
Okay, and then town hall guest 5G.
Actually, Yeah.
Yeah, that works, yeah. Okay, so go back to, the website where you went on for the meeting.
Oh.
Safari maybe?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, yes, it is. No, it's Chrome.
Oh, okay. It's okay.
Okay,
Got
A little
it.
so
technology.
here we go,
Oh,
so
there you go, okay. So,
now
yeah.
what?
Now, come back to this one? Yeah. No, wait, it's the little tree. Little tree. There you go. Slide down. Pop it back in. Go ahead. Okay, Mary Jo, you're coming in. And go ahead, yep. Yep, yeah, you did it. Join. How are you doing?
Recording in progress.
Mary Jo, click your mute on your speakers.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, now I go back to share. Those has
I have
disabled.
my, it's muted, but it's still making noise.
Turn your voice off.
Yeah, it
If
will,
I'm
if your
sorry about
computer.
that.
No, that's fine.
It says
So I
host
made
is-
Mary Jo a co-host as
Oh,
well.
look, there it
You
is.
could also,
Thank
okay.
Almost.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think-
almost there.
Who's
Close.
sharing? Oh, Mary Jo's sharing.
Yeah.
Although you guys, okay, so this is Mary Jo's screen you're seeing.
Okay, so,
So whoever's gonna speak, Mary Jo can drive the screens. Does that make sense?
yeah, okay, sure.
There we go.
Look at
Oh, our trade.
Thank you, Mary
That
Jo.
works.
I thought I'll bring it just in case.
I don't know how to turn your computer, so,
that. It's a free now.
okay.
That's pretty nice looking. Aren't those flowers gorgeous?
Okay, yes, and unfortunately, a lot of people think that, right?
I know.
So, we are part of the Subduing Knotweed Coalition. We, how do I do those down, like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the Subduing Knotweed Coalition? So, a while ago, we started this after Brian Colleran had done a presentation on invasives in Shutesbury, and Mary Jo and I were the ones that were like, knotweed. So we ended up starting this. Mary Jo really is the big driver of it, but I'm gonna handle the Shutesbury aspect. So we're a big group of concerned citizens, numbering over 200 people at this point, from 25 different towns, at least 25. There's a monthly meeting, and we talk about what's happening, people from Deerfield, and everybody is sort of branching off and trying to do things in their own communities to address the concerns that we have for this incredibly invasive knotweed. So our goals for the coalition are to manage the knotweed in a sustainable way. We provide education, all different kinds of things. We have flyers, and we have meetings and presentations and all sorts of things that we can get the word out about how bad knotweed is, because when you saw that picture in the beginning, that beautiful knotweed, I have seen people have it growing up in the center of their yard like it's this beautiful stand of whatever. Yes, and you will see a lot of bees on it, not native bees that we really need to worry about. So prevention, how do we prevent knotweed from spreading? Because if you look around, it's spreading everywhere. And that really is a huge thing to get the word out on preventing the spread of knotweed. Here in Shutesbury and other towns, mapping it, that means we're using iNaturalist, which is an app. And you take a picture and then you say where it is and puts it on a big map of Shutesbury, and we can see where the knotweed sightings are everywhere. And that will help us target where to get rid of it. We because of the nature of knotweed, which I'll get into in a minute, it eliminates the native habitat. And we want to restore that by getting rid of it and having the native habitat grow back. Working with organizations, there's a lot of organizations that Mary Jo has reached out to that are also very concerned about it because it's everywhere. Work with states and municipalities, pass legislation, and create funding. There is some funding out there, but we're working to see if we can get more funding for dealing with getting rid of it in other places. This is the information from a flyer. Our flyer is really beautiful. We couldn't get it up on the.
It's actually on the last, I got it up.
You did? Oh, it's on the last one. Okay, so I'll see it at the end. It's very pretty. The really important things are not to mow it or cut it. You know, you cut it and the smallest little piece can, if it gets left in the ground, can start at roots and it goes again. It really is an unbelievably tenacious plant. If you end up cutting it even to like apply an herbicide or whatever, or anything that you cut down, unless it's in the dead of winter and frozen solid, has to be put in a place where it can completely dry out, because anywhere it touches the ground, it can root again. I had somebody, we did the sustainability fair in Amherst, and a person from Shutesbury came and said, oh, you know, so you can't use vinegar to get rid of it? And we're like, vinegar doesn't do anything. And he said, oh, because, you know, 20 years ago, he said, I had it in my yard, and I cut it down and I dumped it off in the compost. Now he's got another big stand in it back there. So if it's really small, you can dig it up. Other than that, we have to find other ways to deal with it. You can't compost it until it's completely dead and brown. How bad is knotweed really? It's really, really bad. This is some pictures of it growing along waterways. And this is a major problem because it does not hold the ground like other plants do. It's rhizomes, and they're loose rhizomes. So if a storm comes, it breaks off, the erosion happens, and the pieces get washed downstream. And guess what? They start again. So it can grow through foundations, culverts, bridges, splits in pavement, come into septic tanks. It grows underground for great distances. Small pieces broken off from stormwater, from mowing, from plowing and digging can start new colonies. It increases the erosion. So anywhere it's growing around culverts and bridges, it can spread, and it impacts, and it has a negative impact on water quality. It becomes a monoculture, unlike other invasives that we have around, and there are a lot of invasives here in town, everywhere, bittersweet, you name it, there's tons of invasives. But they don't become a monoculture. A monoculture is something where it is the only thing that grows there. It grows over everything that's there, and everything else disappears. So if it's on a waterway, if it's a big patch, all the native plants disappear. Any native plants that would be there for pollinators are gone. It's a terrible thing. So this is one of the examples of it growing through a foundation. And then we have the lovely. Well, now we need volume.
Oh, just.
Oh dear.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Whatever one turns the speakers back on.
It's a little loud.
It's like asparagus, doesn't it? The first
Yeah.
one.
Right through the pavement. Right into foundations. So, so it is rapid, it grows. Okay, no, I can't make this. I made it full screen and now. It's not coming to the next screen. Sorry, small technical difficulty. Here's the one we're at. Okay. Review slideshow and it will come up with this one. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So this is knotweed in Shutesbury, and we have quite a bit of it. We missed a second slide. Okay, second slide is this. This one to the left is right out here, outside this building. It's growing right along the side of the building, and you can see the very tiny plants. So it grows it just grows out from the rhizome. So there's a big plant right near the building, and then it just is going out. There's quite a large area around the plants that, even though it looks like the plant is just in one spot, it really is all around. So prevention and early response are the key. We want to restore the habitat that knotweed is impacting in our town. This is in town. This is what I would like to see all over Shutesbury. This is a large stand of a native pollinator called Thalictrum, and it supports a lot of different bees and butterflies, and it's a gorgeous plant. And if knotweed comes in there and wipes all that out, then the bees don't have access. And I don't know if you know that a lot of our pollinators only go to one particular kind of plant. They can't just go to the knotweed that's blooming and get the pollen from there. They have particular plants that they host to the ones that they get their nectar and pollen from. And if that plant isn't around, the pollinator disappears. So that's why we're seeing pollinator corridors now, where people are planting things because insects only fly about 1,000 feet. And so we need to have these areas where the plants, we all know insects are dying out, and especially our pollinators. We don't want to see that. We would like to address eliminating knotweed now. Begin in the town roadways and properties this August, not on private property. Eradicating knotweed is a very difficult thing. It's a lengthy process, no matter what treatment option that you use. And Brian Cullerin is, he's a professional wetland scientist and certified ecological restoration practitioner. And he put together a plan for the library site, because there's some knotweed on there. And he has agreed to support us in our efforts to do this. But he said that a targeted use of herbicide is really the only way to go for large infestations, which is what we have in Shutesbury. If you see a tiny area, which is one of the things we want to do, is put together an early response team, then we can dig it up. But other than a small spot, digging, tarping are not very effective. They're very time intensive and labor intensive. And it's not sustainable for a large spread of knotweed. So our highway department, we were hoping that Steve was here, he said he was gonna come tonight. He is definitely on board with tackling knotweed. We've had multiple conversations with him. In fact, I spoke with him yesterday, and he was saying that he just keeps finding more and more knotweed all over town. And he said places I've never seen it before, it's coming up. And he said we really need to get it under control now. Brian Colleran is willing to be a consultant with Steve for the development of a plan and a timeline to deal with the knotweed in town. It will be a multi-year process. It is not easy to get rid of. You knock it down even with an herbicide and it pops back up. You gotta weaken it and year after year in order to get rid of it. It would mean using a low concentration of glyphosate. Glyphosate, as you know, is Roundup. And a lot of people have negative feelings about Roundup. I am a staunch organic gardener. I have been forever. I have also been an active pollinator person for the last 20 years. I have an 800 square foot garden at Irving Elementary School that I put in with a partner, and we still maintain that garden. I don't want to use glyphosate usually, but I also know that that is the only way for us to attack this plant, is to use the glyphosate. And unless we can get rid of it and put the native pollinators back, the knotweed is going to completely take over and wipe all those good things out and cause erosion and all these other things. So the timeline that we would use would be very similar to the plan that Brian developed for the new library site. It's a multi-year plan. And we would use volunteers to keep an eye on regrowth if it happens, because it can happen. There are many towns in Massachusetts that are tackling. I was online, and there are towns around here: Arlington, Stowe, Swampscott, Springfield, Longmeadow, Royalston, Haverhill. And a lot of those towns, I made contact with some of the highway departments in those towns. They hire people out. They hire professionals to come and do it. It's not hugely costly. I was surprised at that, but it's still a costly thing. And what we have is we have Steve Sullivan, who's willing to get his chemical application certification and recertification, yes, he's had it before, and take care of it here in town. A few people in Shutesbury got together a number of years ago in 2013, and I have the printout of the sites that they found. There were 25 spots in Shutesbury at that time, and now 10 years later we have so many more than that. And so we're hoping that you can support us to keep our town beautiful, restore the native habitat for the health of the environment. And here comes Steve now, and our pollinators. So other considerations that we're thinking about is we need you also to sponsor applicants for funding the removal of knotweed. We are willing to do a lot of the work and look for grants and apply for grants and do all of that stuff, but we need the support of the town. The other thing is supporting landowners to determine ways to work with the knotweed safely. I want to tell you a little story that just happened to me. I didn't even get a chance to tell you. So we had a mapping group here a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and some people came, and people come and they're also concerned about the knotweed that's in their yard, right? Oh, I have it in my yard, but I don't know, maybe I could dig it up, I don't know. And there was a young man there, and he said, I live on, West Pelham, and I think the spots are small, I think I can dig them up. And I said, I'd be happy to come and look at your yard for you, so I went over there on the weekend. And he said, look, see, it's just this little spot here. So, yes, I bought this house, I don't know how many years ago, it wasn't very many years ago. They had just put in a new septic system, right? And so whether they covered up, dug up and buried the majority of the knotweed, or whether they brought in dirt that had knotweed in it, I don't know. But there was knotweed on the side, and I said, well, let's just go down. It completely encircled the whole septic system. And I said, there's no way that you can dig this out. It's just, and it's starting to go into the woods. And, that's another consideration, is that, people don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to identify it. And he's like, well, can't I? What do you think? I could just get some spray and spray it. I was like, I think it's a very particular thing, and you have way more than you can personally handle. You need to hire a professional to do this. So, if we don't support these landowners on land like that, if I had bought that property, I would have been livid to find that they had buried it, they cut it down clearly, and it was buried under thick wood chips. And now he's been there a couple of years and it's all sprouting up there. My understanding is that you own the house, it's on your property, it's your problem. If you sell it and it's got that, or if it gets into your neighbor's yard, it's your problem. And that is a huge thing that we need to think about as landowners in Shutesbury. So, should there be a bylaw or a town policy for addressing knotweed? I think that's up for discussion, but it's certainly something that we need to think about, because we've been here before. It didn't really ever take off the way it should have. We could have gotten rid of this 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and now we have a lot more to deal with. So please support us, support the town. Steve, do you want to talk about how much knotweed you're seeing and
What you want to do about
what you
it?
want to do about it?
Oh, what I want to do about it, I find some way to get rid of it. But my concern, 7 years ago, I sprayed 1 gallon of Roundup, or 3 ounces of Roundup to 130 ounces of water, and made up 1 gallon, and I sprayed 6 spots. That was every spot in the town right of way that I knew of, because this was after the Pelham Hill had been sprayed, and there was only one patch about a foot square that had come back at that point, and I sprayed it, and there were 5 other spots in town, and the brouhaha that came from that spraying of that 1 gallon, I let my license lapse because there was no way I was gonna go through that again. But now I've talked to both Mary Jo and Pam that I'm really concerned, because now it's growing up in my swales and drainage ditches, where in the past I've never had to worry about digging them out because the knotweed wasn't in there, but now it is. And what am I going to do with that material when I take it out?
Right. And that's another issue, because he has to have somewhere to lay it so it can completely dry out and not cause any more infestations.
But we're super fortunate because we have Steve who knows about it and has resources to do something about it, where, in other towns, like Amherst, they ask them not to mow it, and the DPW mowed it, and, a little piece like that, it's almost always spread by people.
Yeah.
It doesn't spread by seed, so a little piece like that on a mower, you go down a half a mile, it drops down, and then you've got more. And so we're in such a great place with having Steve on board.
Yeah, we stopped mowing 3 years ago because my test plot on Cooleyville is now the shape and size of our over the guardrail mower, where it was just this one little patch. And now if you look at it, it's a 48-inch wide, I don't know, 30-foot long rectangle. That's the size and shape of our mower head. So 3 years ago, we stopped mowing because I could see that that was what was happening with it.
And we're just also fortunate that Brian has been volunteering with our group and has, is willing to help, and we can also use, because the plan that he has, you can spray it in certain times of the year and it doesn't do anything. You have to spray it when it's taking its things down into the earth in the fall. And so, we already have a plan, and we said, well, we don't want to take your plan. And he's like, no, we can use it. So we have, we're incredibly fortunate to have Brian and Steve, and of course Pam, who's done so much work here. So it's a lot easier, we're in a better position as long as the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health and you guys are okay with it and support it. I think we've got a lot ready to go.
So can you talk about or address how much of the knotweed is in wetlands?
That was my question too.
Whether or not, I mean, that's hard to determine without
Or within 100 feet
delineation.
of the wetlands under the
Yes,
bylaw, right?
yeah, and what your discussions have been with the Conservation Commission to date about their impression.
From the Conservation?
I'm not.
Oh, so we don't have a Conservation Commission?
No, so nobody showed up.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that on Lot 32, where Brian developed a plan for the site.
Jan Rowan is on the Concom and she's on screen.
Oh, great. Hi.
Anyway, they approved the spraying.
And that's in the buffer
a
zone.
very targeted way, and they didn't approve Roundup, they used something called aqua, which is
Yep, absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
preferred
Yeah.
product for sensitive areas, and it is
It's a glyphosate
it
product.
has different adjuvants.
It has a much shorter half-life, and doesn't have the impact on water the way regular glyphosate does, which is another concern for townspeople just spraying randomly without knowing what to do. And some towns, we did some research, and some towns have put up where you have to apply and do an application to get rid of the knotweed on your property. But as Mary Jo and I talked about that's gonna push people away, and nobody knows where it is on somebody's property, so people just don't even have to do that. Better to support those people who, I have knotweed, what do I do about it here? We have this town information to give you. We will help you find a professional, we will whatever, however that comes about, to support people rather than to push them away.
So that is a question that we talked about just yesterday. Right now we know that things in the buffer zone, have been approved by the Conservation Commission previously. And so anything that would be wetlands close, we would proceed with caution. We would talk to Brian, we talk to the Conservation Commission.
Absolutely.
Permitted.
Yeah.
So that's what, we presented to the Conservation Commission a while back when we were just sort of in general, so we would have to do that. But it's unclear to me if Steve can start with the roads where he has the jurisdiction and there are not wetlands. It seems like that.
It would be useful if you have a decent map of where the knotweed town is.
We're working on
Because
that.
there is a map of where at least the state wetlands are, and you could overlay that.
That would be good.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So we could absolutely do that work. we can absolutely, we have somebody, on our group is a retired geology professor, and he's already been doing some of that kind of work, so I think he could do that.
You know, the other thing that comes to mind after what Steve said is the blowback last time, and I think you need to.
I'm sorry?
The
blowback.
blowback from the efforts that were done a while back. I think you need to do some serious education before you start.
Well, we've been trying to do that. We've had a lot of stuff on next door. We've had different, we have
But
done,
I think that's different than saying we have a plan to spray these patches with this product.
And maybe that comes from the select board
Yeah.
and highway superintendent rather than
Right.
you guys,
We
because.
don't have any power.
Well, you do, you just don't realize it.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. And then it's sanctioned, it's a sanctioned activity, and that we have done our research and we're using experts to kind of guide it. You know, I always, as I go down Pelham Hill Road all the time, and there's that whole patch. I know you had sprayed that once, right?
Yep.
You know, right before you get into Pelham. But that's Amherst watershed, I think,
It's
isn't
Amherst
it?
one,
And we own it
along
now.
this- Along the new conservation property.
Right, exactly. We own
And there are
that.
at least 3 good-sized patches.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
very good.
Oh, it's all just.
Is it just
It's
all
all
one big?
Yeah.
one big.
Well,
Okay, well, that's.
and there's also the possibility that for very sensitive patches, we can inject. And then injection means that you inject it into the stem, and it, from what I understand, it then will go right down and it will grab the soil and it will stay there. So it doesn't actually move through water when
Well,
you
it
do
stays
that.
within the can.
But if you
Yeah.
had thousands of stems, I mean, I
Right,
think about that
right,
area.
right.
I don't
I'm
know
just
how
saying
long.
that-
I think it would
We
be
did
great
the
to do a
injection around
test
town
pilot
hall.
right here at
That's
town
what was
hall.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did the injection around town hall.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, frankly, that's why, because of the work that was done previously, that's why we don't look like Montague and we don't
Right.
look like Leverett, because of the work. Even though it's come back, the work that was done previously by the group of volunteers and by Steve is really why we don't have the problems that other towns have. So it has, even though it has come back, has made a significant difference in what we're facing right now.
So how many years, let's just say through injection or
Whatever methods.
spraying,
way.
whatever method you use, how many consecutive years does it have to be done? Like 3
well,
or 4 years?
It's really unclear. There's like, you know, if you do it, like they're saying like 90% will be gone the first year, and then you're working on that smaller percent. But it can also sort of lay dormant for a while and then come back. So I think like you did, I'm thinking you did that patch on
It's-
West Pelham like 7 years ago or so,
But
right?
it's about, I've been spraying some privately, and in 3 years, if you don't spray the little things that come back every year, in 3 years, it's come back pretty strong.
Yeah,
And
so
Mary Jo, Steve didn't do the major Right, he time
just
we
did-
did on West Pelham was done professionally. After we got permitting through Concom, and it was done by hired professionals.
oh, okay, I thought Tim had said he did it, but
But
Doing
might
it
have come back
once is-
after,
But the point, I guess the point I wanted to make is
Doesn't
that
work.
it stayed low and not, because I walked by that and we didn't have it for numbers of years. And then it came back like 5 or 6 years later. So it's always going to be something to look at, but if we can do like a really good job for like 5 years, we're not going to be we're never going to be out of the woods. This is going to be something that's, I mean, because one thing is, Knotweed doesn't know boundaries. It doesn't know that this is Shutesbury and that's Leverett, you know, so it's going to be coming back. So it's an ongoing process that the town has to accept. And then also, you know, we're also trying to work with the state to get education to other towns so that, that would protect our town too.
So I know
We're running behind
running
already.
behind schedule.
It's a
Is
big
it
topic.
possible, given, I mean, I think I am supportive
Yep.
Yeah,
of,
I was
you
trying to
know,
figure out what that
a
means.
plan, well, I think
definitely,
if we had a plan that described what was gonna be used, where it was gonna be used, and maybe we start with, so town-owned property, I mean, you guys decide what's the highest priority, but, and I agree, around town hall, there's a lot of.
You could do a master class in invasive species.
Around
here.
But if-
have them all.
So if we had a plan that was then, that the select board, said,
Yeah,
put our stamp of approval on, and then you could move forward.
But you would want to take that to Concom.
Well, I was gonna say.
through the proper
it's always-
channels.
Yeah,
Right.
and just so you know, if you haven't spent a lot of time, the process is you would have to file paperwork called a request of determination of applicability. And you'd have to give them maps and, your whole protocol, and they would have to have a public meeting.
so that's true for Steve to do it on the side of the road.
Steve has to do that sometimes too, doesn't he?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's assuming that it's in a buffer zone, a
Right,
wetland buffer
if it's
zone,
in-
if it's
in a
not.
buffer zone, right,
Right.
and I can show you where the maps are.
Yeah, so Steve could start in non-buffer zone places without, but can the person that was from Concom, does they have any input?
I don't see her anymore.
Jan's still
Oh,
there.
Jan's still here.
Maybe if you, stop sharing your screen, you could probably see her.
The red.
No, I'm just showing for the cursor.
Ignite the screen, will come back. There we go. Now we can see everybody. There we go. There she go.
There she is, near the bottom.
Oh, there she is.
Hi, Jan. Can you hear us?
No, she may not be, she may be waiting for the section that she was attending. Okay.
Oh, no,
right.
I hear you, but I just caught a little bit of this. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes. We were asking the question about buffers, the process for the buffer zones for spraying or dealing with knotweed. And didn't know if you wanted to chime in real quick before we move on to a different topic.
Gosh, no.
No, that's fine. That was putting you on the spot. We realize that. Okay, so is that the plan to get together a plan and
So
come back to
we
us?
put together a proposal that.
But she's looking for a
We
plan
might
like
have very
this.
more specific.
They want a plan,
Yeah,
and
we can do
would,
that.
so in the, I just want to be real clear about what we need to do. So in the areas that are not buffer zone, we still need to go to the Concom and talk to them?
No.
Tell us exactly what. So for the non-buffer zone areas, like along the roadside, what? No, I just wanted Penny's input because sometimes Concom would rather look at your full map and determine, because sometimes the buffers, the maps are
Sometimes there are
wrong.
isolated wetlands that aren't shown on the state map, and so
I see.
the commission, I would think would want to see all the areas that you plan to treat, and they would want to see that overlaid on the state map, and then they may want to do a site visit to check things on their own.
Yeah, because there could be an isolated wetland that they're concerned
Sure.
about, but it's, we want to do it right,
Yeah, my sense is in terms of trying to negate the blowback, that's probably a good idea. Make sure that everyone's consulted and,
Yep.
I think that's, even if it's not even quite legally necessary, it's not a bad idea to get them involved and ask, I would say.
And then it can be part of the plan is to start those areas first and then, the more sensitive areas with the permitting and such that might need to happen.
Okay,
And do you have Brian's plan? For the-
yes,
Okay, sounds good.
all right, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you
you.
for all this
Okay.
information. We appreciate it, thank you. Ooh. Moving on to the ECAC charge and possible vote. Hi, Mike.
Melissa, can I make a suggestion? Since
Yes,
there's a whole bunch of planning board colleagues here, if you guys want to flip flop and do planning board and then ECAP, that'd be okay with me. I'm here for both.
yeah, the associate
How's
member of finance.
How does the
I
board
was
feel about
hoping that Michael was gonna make that suggestion.
Okay. Is the select board
That's fine,
okay
that's
with
fine.
with flipping? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll move on to the associate planning board members joint appointment with the planning board first. Do you need
Thank
to
you,
call
Melissa.
yourself to order? Yep.
Yes, we do. So I do see a quorum. We have Jeff Weston. We have Steve Bressler, Robert Raymond, Michael De Chiara, and myself. So we have well, we have 5 out of 7 anyway. And so I'll call the planning board to order. And we can we have the planning board has voted to reappoint both Keith Hasty and Tom Seifert. And the votes were unanimous, and we're ready to move forward with that. And I'm happy to kind of just hand it back to you, the select board, to run these as you need to.
Just so you know, Nate, Tom is here with us in person.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yeah, so you have 6.
All right.
Well,
He's
the
associate
Associate
member.
member,
That's
yeah,
6 people.
to be reappointed.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay, so I make a motion that we appoint Tom Seifert as an associate planning board member.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay,
He's-
okay. Also, do we have any further discussion on? No, okay. All those in favor?
Carol, I.
Stalker,
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Nathan, do you want to run through yours?
Yes, sure. Bressler?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he said aye, but he was muted.
Aye.
Yeah.
Raymond?
Aye.
De Chiara?
Aye.
Weston?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Okay, and then I make a motion that we appoint Keith Hasty as an associate planning board member.
Second?
Second? Okay. Any further discussion for Keith being appointed? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Carol, I.
Stalker,
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Nathan?
Bressler?
Aye.
Raymond?
Aye.
De Chiara?
Aye.
Weston?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion for the planning board to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, second.
Aye.
Robert seconds. I'm just going to make a quick note. Thanks everyone for the quick appointment, and thank you to our 2 associate members for their contributions so far, and we're looking forward to what they will do next year. Thank you both. All right, I'm going to call the roll. Bressler?
Yay.
Raymond?
Aye.
De Chiara?
Aye.
Weston?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Planning board is adjourned. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to the ECAC charge review and a possible vote.
Rita, do you want to do this?
No, you can do it.
Okay.
Is,
So-
I can share if we want to.
yeah, why don't you share it?
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
wait,
I
hold
mean,
on.
I can give the background. So we had an original charge to the Energy and Climate Action Committee, and I think as the committee has been operating over the course of the last, is it 2 years now?
2 years, yes.
Yes, it became clear that tweaking the charge would make some sense. And
It's coming.
Michael, I'm not sure who did the major part. I know I took a look at it and then you did, Michael, and was there another member of the?
Yeah, it was a little, so, when we left the select board last time, you were gonna take a shot at it and I was gonna edit it. We ended up doing it the reverse. And then at the June.
Then it went back to the committee.
Yeah, and then at the June ECAC meeting, Nate Hurd actually introduced the bones of the one that you're looking at now. And the thing, so we retooled it a bit. Some of the things just to call out, the original version was very much tied to the municipal vulnerability preparedness plan and the hazard mitigation plan. And what we found, we spent better part of 1 year trying to prioritize that and move things forward. And it seems like it's really sort of a bigger charge, of which those are pieces. So we didn't want to hang our hat on that. And, you know, Nate had a very good observation, which is a lot of this is about reducing greenhouse gases and then promoting cleaner and more resilient energy infrastructure. So it's those two things, which is the first part. The list of areas that we would do really carries over from what we'd created originally. So we carried that through. You'll see in number 5, that's where the MVP and the hazard mitigation plan show up. So we retained it, we just sort of dropped it down a bit. One of the major changes, as you see in the composition, this is something that I think ECAC supports and Rita supported, which is that we originally were created as a 7-member committee, and we've had a hard time getting enough people. So we've had 4, which is just the bare minimum for a quorum. So if anyone can't show up, we're stymied. So the idea was just to shrink it down to 5, which is a little bit better. We still have room for 1 more person, but you have a little more flexibility to continue the work. And then the last thing I would say, which is what we all talked about last time, was the sort of fundamental shift was when the first charge was written, it really was the ECAC making recommendation to the select board. And to refresh your memory, it got a little confusing as to who was responsible for what, which is why we missed the public hearing going into town meeting. And I think after 2 years of operation, we realized that, of course, ECAC will work with the select board or other committees as necessary, but that rather than reporting to the select board sort of as a junior committee, we would just sort of take on the responsibility of working with residents and forming committees, et cetera. And I'll just say as a note, at our July meeting on July 30th, we're going to be meeting with the buildings committee to figure out how to sort of tap their expertise so we can start looking at ways of doing solar. We've been stymied a whole bunch of times in that regard, or also heat pumps, which is another thing that DOER suggested. So it's just sort of an example in action that if we can work independently with committees, we can come up with ideas. And then clearly, if we have to work with the FinCom because we have suggestions about how to spend money, or we need to bring something to a town meeting, we would work with the select board, but basically operate like all other committees. So that's the changes that we've got. We're all happy with it. We unanimously approved it, the 4 of us.
I have no other questions.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
No, I don't either.
Are we prepared to vote on the updated charge? Yeah? Okay. Do I hear a
Good.
motion?
I move that we approve the new Shutesbury Energy and Climate Action Committee charge.
Second.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? No? All right. All in favor?
Farrell, aye.
Stalker,
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks to Nate and the rest of the committee too.
I'll pass that along.
And then we're skipping over the calendar and the select board review appointment of the land use clerk.
Doc is here.
Oh,
Oh, that's Dr.
yes, it is. Why don't you come around here so we can see you?
Now, I already went through one job interview,
Did you?
but I'll do another one.
Okay.
Need me to.
So, Becky, I take it Doc is interested in the land use clerk position.
It has been interviewed and recommended.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. Does the select board have any questions for Doc? I need to get my other-
My only question would be just whether or not, I get, you're still a reporter, right, for,
Yeah.
no, you're not, okay.
No,
Then
I
that isn't
quit.
my question anymore.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't take this job if I was still.
That's what I was asking, so,
Yeah,
good, that's good.
I guess my question is what, why were you interested in this position?
Yeah, well, one thing I realized is that I would be learning an awful lot about town government that I didn't get exposure to really as a reporter, because we didn't like go into the nuts and bolts and nitty gritty, and that appeals to me. But yeah, actually, the news business is in flux, and I don't want to be in flux, so it makes sense to do something different. Yeah, and also, Shutesbury was one of my favorite towns. True.
That's a good answer. Diplomatic answer.
Yeah, I don't have any questions that, do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Doc Pine as the new land use clerk.
Second,
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor of appointing Doc?
Farrell, aye.
Stalker,
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And when are you starting?
Yeah, I have a seminar I'm doing, and then a family get-together, so the 24th, I think.
Of July.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Great, well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, and now.
The contract. Oh, we need Mary
PFAS
Ann.
litigation.
Is Mary Ann?
She was later, though, wasn't she?
Well,
This is the
She knew she
PFAS.
was at 7.
PFAS litigation.
Oh, yeah, it's the
contract.
contract,
Yeah.
It's the
PFAS
PFAS.
contract.
Yeah.
Okay. Becky, do you want to fill us in?
Okay, so, as you all know, we have a problem with PFAS in town. And what has been recommended to us by a number of people that there are ongoing litigation efforts against the manufacturers of this highly contaminating product, and that we should join one of these efforts, one of these major groups. We compared two. This one seemed more in tune with our current circumstance. Princeton is also involved in this litigation, and they have a similar spread impact starting from a fire station and the town becoming the responsible party. So when I had brought this forward before, there's a lot of concerning language in here. So to be represented by this group of lawyers means a group of lawyers wrote their contract, and it has been now reviewed by our lawyer. And I shared with you Donna's responses. In her email, she lists there is no guarantee that of any amount of money that we might make, but there is liability for the fact that if we do not have, we could end up having to pay sums of money that are uncertain. It could be quite a large liability if the payouts from the manufacturers are not as what we hope.
So I know Rita followed up with Donna with more direct questions about whether she would recommend us moving ahead, because when you read through all her concerns, moving ahead is hard to do.
Well, I think it wasn't even, it was stuff that we identified, that the
Yeah.
board identified in terms of the town's liability, as Becky said, if the suits fail, let's say, it's a class action suit, so it's a number of communities that they're working on behalf of, that we could actually be charged for the attorney's time. And so I said to Donna, we're really concerned about that. It's a risk to the community, but there's, also the potential return. If we're successful, then all of the costs associated with PFAS, over a period of years, because this is not going away. Our responsibility continues for as long as we have PFAS. So whether it's the filtration systems, or it's getting water, or whatever else might surface. What Donna said was that this is pretty standard language, that we shouldn't be alarmed by this, but there is a risk that we have to discuss and acknowledge that if in fact, something failed. But she said, these attorneys are not in this, they're in this to win, because the wins are substantial amounts of money, and it's going to take a long time. She said this will go, for a period of years. So that's, I think that's what we have to just acknowledge and make sure that we're comfortable in signing on. But as far as the actual legal services agreement, she thought it was a pretty standard agreement. And I said, would you sign it if you were in our shoes? And she said,
that is a good question.
and she said, yes, she would. But she's also, she's not, we're the fiscal agents for the town here, and yeah, she's not responsible, but she said, yes, she would. So that's, the upside is we could get a lot of money back, payment back. Obviously, these attorneys, they always take a big cut. It's usually a third. The downside is if the whole thing tanks, there's not only nothing that we could liable, but what she did say was that typically they don't come after, the attorneys only would really kind of aggressively come after you if we decided in 3 years, we don't want these guys to represent us anymore. We're gonna go with another firm, that they would then say, well, wait a minute, we did all this work, we put all this time in. So, if this firm has come recommended, right, was it by Ty and Bond?
Yes,
Yes.
by Jeffrey Arps.
By Jeffrey Arps. They're representing other municipalities.
Princeton.
Do we know what other municipalities?
Well,
besides
are there any others besides Princeton that we know of?
I don't know their names off the top, but there's a
But
lot
there's
of
a
more
bunch of-
local, they're between Worcester and here, they're
Okay,
not as many towns right around us have become responsible parties.
right. And in this case, this firm had more experience with wells, right? That it wasn't a public water
Right,
system.
the other firm that I interviewed was public water systems, not wells, and
Right.
Princeton.
It's
the
same
area broke
situation
out
as
has
ours.
wells, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Which is the next stage that they're going to go into to try to negotiate
funding, so if the decision is to move ahead, I'll get this out as soon as possible, because we want to sign it tonight.
So really our alternative is to just continue.
To not do
nothing,
anything.
Do
Right.
nothing and continue to just pay people's.
Right,
And
well,
we haven't pressed the state, and that has been happening, pressing like
Right.
state of Massachusetts to help pay these.
Would that preclude, would this any of this preclude
Oh,
that? I
no,
don't think
not
it
at
would.
all, not at all.
And it does benefit us to work in the different ways, right?
Right, well-
Because even the state stuff is slow.
right.
So,
Right.
you know, we have to do it more immediately and pay it out more immediately. And I don't disagree with it.
So in terms of what it would cost us right now.
It doesn't cost us anything.
No.
We're just signing on to an agreement. We're agreeing, we're becoming part of a class action suit. There's no cost to us.
Okay, right,
The only cost comes if we pull out,
right.
or if the whole thing just, falls apart,
Right.
blows up at some point, and they have put all this time into it.
And expenses for different things that they might come back up, they're getting lab reports, they're doing research, so if they end up having spent X amount of money and for some reason the payback from the manufacturers is negligible or doesn't occur, then they'll come looking at us to try to help get rid of their debts. But optimistically, the other class action on the public is paying out. You don't hear about that one failing at all. So that's on the up and up, so we don't have reason to anticipate this
Sure.
at this point, but we will get annual reports or more and monitor their activity.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Go for it, Eric.
I guess I would.
To execute a
Yeah, I move we
Legal
execute the
services.
contract for legal services with, who was it? I have it somewhere
So it's Law Office of Kevin Madonna, PLLC, SL Environmental Law Group, Douglas and London, PC 11, as written.
Right, yeah,
The law
there are
office is
1,
as
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 law firms, right?
Yes. A team of attorneys.
A team of attorneys. I move we execute the contract as described.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Farrell, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Great. Now moving on to for presentation, Army Corps of Engineers update on 66 Leverett.
There's Mary Ann.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna just find my notes. Good. So on June 27th, we heard from the Army Corps of Engineers Real Estate Division. They have sent us a right of entry request. And so I contacted Jeff Dvorak. He's the project manager assigned to the release. And they're still working through the procurement process in order to hire an LSP to manage the release on their behalf. I asked him if he could, give me a scope of work, a schedule, and he couldn't say anything. He couldn't say what the frequency of accessing the site would be or the type of activities that they expect to be performing, or the type of equipment that they expect to be using. He says he can't share any of that information until they've completed their procurement process. They understand that the limit of work for the library construction project, goes right across, the access road that we've been using to access the area. And that the contractor will need to have advance notice in order for any large equipment to be able to move across the work area. And they agree that it's reasonable for the town to have more information before signing the right of entry form, and that we may want to make some adjustments to the language in the form before signing it. And they said waiting to sign the form until they've furnished us more information won't delay their actions. Once they're ready to start, since you meet on a regular basis, it won't take more than 2 weeks for you to sign an updated right of entry form when the time comes. Right now, all we can do is inform the contractor that this work is coming. But since we don't know anything more specific from that, we can't make any specific request of the contractor, and we can't ask the contractor to share his concerns about how this might affect the project. So when I have a meeting with the contractor, I will share that this will be happening, but I can't say much more than that. So do you have any questions?
Marianne, I know I've seen plans for the library site. So how, if you were going to go straight back from the little circular drive there
Right.
to the path which is back to the site of the underground storage tank where the contamination is, does that touch upon anything that any of the library?
Yes. Yeah, yes. I mean, it's the driveway and the parking area, a retention basin, and a stormwater management area, I'm pretty sure too, is back there. So, and now the driveway is not gonna be finished first, right? They're gonna get in there, get the site ready, put the building in, and then do the paving and the landscaping at the end. But it does encompass the limit of work. And when they have a plan, when they can tell us what the plan is, if the plan is to do seasonal testing of the water using the monitoring wells that we've already installed, that can be done without bringing mechanical equipment back there. Fuss and O'Neill just carried buckets and a pump and jars and, they carried things by hand. So they didn't drive vehicles out there. If at some point they're going to install more wells or do some kind of extraction, then they will need to bring equipment, but they don't have a plan to start yet. And I don't think they're gonna start with, well, they can't tell us how they're gonna start. So, and then so on the right of entry form, they gave themselves a period of 7 years. That doesn't mean that they're going to be doing stuff for 7 years. But they wanted to kind of just give themselves a window. And so say if they do, have to drive heavy equipment over the driveway and over the berm at the back of the driveway, and they break it, they are going to be responsible for repairs. And it does say that right in their paperwork. Not that specifically, but they are, they will, if they break something, they'll fix it.
Right. Yeah, my recollection is when we first talked to them, that there was a range of mitigation from simply doing additional testing to the most extreme is actually removing the soil and excavating it, which would be probably the most destructive activity. So
Right.
we don't, it was also something where they could possibly inject stuff into the soil to dissipate the
Right.
the gasoline.
Right. Right.
So,
Like when we were talking to our LSP, those were different options that were discussed, different ways of mitigating gasoline releases. We hadn't gotten to a place where we were deciding, you know, a mitigation factor. And it seems like from the questions they're asking me, they are going to kind of start at the beginning and do their own investigation, which makes sense. And they're responsible to DEP. Now they're the responsible party. So there's no sort of issue for the town other than being ready to help them access the site and do their work. Once they can tell us, just because we're about to start construction any day now, you know, at the front of the lot, and the work area eventually will block access to where they need to go. We need to have more information. If, you know, if we weren't doing anything there, then,
right.
yeah,
No big.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Marianne.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thanks, Mary Ann.
yep.
So now
Thanks
on to
for
the select
everything,
board
you guys.
You too, thanks. Select board review of the Amherst Town Council's letter regarding education funding. And
Is
you
here.
can come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want you to strain your neck.
Okay, so we've received a letter from the town of Amherst. That gives us a picture.
Yeah.
Shall I share it or no? What?
I think it's a lot.
That's a long letter.
It's a long. AJ, maybe what would be really helpful, I think, for everybody, is just a quick synopsis of like where we got to this budget year and the major concerns.
Okay,
going forward.
so for FY '25, there were, I think, a few things that complicated the budget process, to say the least. One was obviously a fairly new regional school committee. Well, I mean, I think most of the members were brand new to that committee, and I don't think they were brought into the budget process or were kind of clear on the ramifications of certain early projections and sort of non-binding decisions that were made. And by the time they sort of got caught up to speed on implications of some of the early conversations that happened within Four Towns meetings that would have resulted in, you know, a budget increase that was, for a couple of towns, would have put them at 4%, and for us, it was more like 2.5%. I think what they didn't realize was that there were significant consequences in terms of cuts required to make that budget work. And by the time they understood those implications, there was also an enormous amount of public concern about what those cuts would mean in terms of student experience. So the result of all of that was that at a fairly late stage in the process, the region
asked the superintendent to develop a new budget that would basically eliminate all of the cuts that pertain to student-facing positions. Okay, so that budget that was drafted in response to initial four-town feedback, they asked the superintendent to go back, make a new budget, and put back in all of the funds required to zero out any with staff, not all staff reductions, but staff reductions related to student facing experience. That budget produced increase of 8.2% for all four towns, and they voted to recommend that, or they pass that budget, and essentially put it to the four towns to review. We, I think Shutesbury's Finance Committee felt that that was not a workable budget. It just was going to create way too many pressures on a tough budget process as it was for us this year. We saw pretty significant increases in lots of areas. And so I guess it's just longer synopsis than I meant. But suffice it to say, another four-town meeting was called. In preparation for that meeting, we, both Shutesbury and Leverett, I think sort of independently within our boards, had discussions about a compromise solution that would fall somewhere between that budget that had been previously developed and the 8.2%. And so we came out of that four towns meeting kind of essentially jointly recommending with Leverett that for the purpose of FY25, they revise and pass a new budget that imposed a 6% increase on all four towns. I think that puts Amherst in a bit of a tricky position. I think there are, obviously, like any political body, there's sort of different kind of viewpoints and factions within the Amherst boards, some of which I think would have probably, if we hadn't taken that step, might have pushed the region to go back to the drawing board and get closer, if not stick to a 4% increase. I think others understood that the consequences for the quality of educational programming would be too significant, and the cuts too draconian to make that work. But nevertheless, I think Amherst ultimately felt compelled to pass a budget that included a 6% increase. They did it in a complicated way, which is spelled out in their memo. They basically are utilizing 355,000 and change of ARPA funds that they had not spent yet to essentially address the difference between the 4% assessment and a 6% assessment. So that's ultimately what they did. I think this letter is largely focused on the FY26 process and expressed a number of concerns, I think many of which we share with them, which is, we have a kind of structural problem with the way the regional school budget is developed every year, where their level services increases from one year to the next are closer to like a 4% increase than a 2.5% increase, which is what I think Amherst is sort of pushing them to stick to. There's also it's spelled out in here, but there's another unique problem with the FY26 budget, which is that for FY25 the region still utilized some temporary ESSER funding that will no longer be available. I think it was, Susie, it was about $500,000 of it, yeah.
Can you remind me what ESSER is?
This is, I don't remember what the acronym
Yeah,
stands for, but it's
yeah.
pandemic related.
Okay.
Yeah, federal
Federal,
relief
okay.
that,
Yeah.
that went to school districts. And so the last bit of of those funds were utilized to fill some of the gap in the FY '25 budget. That's obviously not going to be available to them. So so if you just imagine a level services budget that would be presented for FY '26, it's in addition to these other kind of structural increases that we can expect to see, we will also, on the revenue side, there will be $500,000 less in this kind of temporary pandemic-related support. So I think all of this, I think, has pushed the boards in Amherst for a different kind of budget process for FY '26. And I think it's one that starts earlier. And so I think, there have been a couple different discussions here. All seem to be mentioning that 4-town discussions need to happen starting in August. And it sounds like every other month is the kind of schedule they anticipate. I think they also I think they're pushing for a much more collaborative process, not one where it's just, the region and the superintendent sort of bring a budget kind of later in the process for towns to approve or not approve. And so I think the only other thing I'll mention is that there's a budget subcommittee that had a meeting on July 1st, a subcommittee of the regional school committee, and I noticed a couple of interesting things in a memo that they shared as part of that meeting. One was an explicit discussion of one of the problems being that I'm quoting here, a large decrease in expenses will be required. So I think there's some kind of recognition, at least within this subcommittee of the region, that this is not just a problem on the revenue side and we're going to spend a year trying to magically, find new sources of revenue. I think that there's a recognition that something needs to be done on the expense side of their budget. There's another sort of section where they list goals of this committee and the recommendations that they're going to produce to the region. And one of them, they said, was to produce a budget recommendation that reflects an educational program that is financially sustainable and appropriate for a district of our size. So I think there's a little bit more, kind of recognition that the expense side of their budget is going to need to be analyzed really carefully. And so I'm expecting some difficult conversations about real meaningful cuts that are going to need to be required.
So we have a new superintendent.
Yeah.
So I assume that in some ways that's an opportunity, right? To have another set of eyes coming in, looking at it. But my sense is that this is going to be a really painful process. And they're looking now for some guidance from us. So we got Lynn Griesemer, who's the president of the Amherst Council there, Amherst Town Council, asked to have a conversation with us and formal with Andy Steinberg from their finance committee and one other person, just to get a sense of like where do we fit into this, or what's our sense. Obviously, we can spend less money. We're happy to spend less money, right? But it could have a significant impact on the quality of the education. You hope not, but
I mean, I think I think it's sort of naive to think that there's somehow this process is not going to require real significant, meaningful cuts. It's as tough as this year was, we know that next year is going to be even tougher for the reason we've already talked about, right? Which is that's $500,000 of revenue that's not going to be available to fund next year's budget. So there are going to be real significant cuts. This is, I think Steve mentioned it at our annual town meeting, how many consecutive years now we've gone with the region needing to make kind of cuts to the level services budget. Like it's like 9 years, yeah. So this is going to be another one. I mean, there's no way around that. I think we're going to have our own challenges here, right? Regardless of how this is not just kind of an Amherst problem. We're going to have this problem. We had to utilize some excess levy capacity this year because of Prop 2.5 and other increases to other budget areas. I mean, I think our elementary school increase was just south of 6%, right? So we're I think one thing that's kind of in our favor is that we had accrued, I think, over $700,000 of excess levy capacity over several years where we had pretty lean budgets and didn't need to tap into that. We did. It's a small amount this year. Was it 17 or 18,000, something like that? Yeah. So I think, look, I think we're probably not going to be in a position to recommend a 6% increase next year. And I don't think the other towns are going to be able to do that as well. So hard decisions are going to have to be made. There's also I think folks have maybe seen that there's a capital plan that the region has shared, which has some pretty scary numbers in terms of what's going to be required to fund that plan from our town when you go out a few years, not too far in the future. That's going to be happening sort of on top of just the concerns we have about the basic operating budget for the district. So I think, one thing we haven't talked about so far in this little recap is, and I'm a little worried about it, to be honest with you, is none of these discussions have addressed assessment method, which is the whole topic we've been able to, we had a little bit of a relief for a couple of years, and now, I'll be honest with you, this FY25 process, really, in a lot of ways, was kind of a step backwards in terms of progress we had made to build consensus around an assessment method that I think was fair to our town. And because it was such a significant increase that was required, and it meant that every town was going to get hit the same, with the same percentage increase. Nobody's really talking about that. And I think I want us to talk about that and kind
to raise it early.
Yeah, to raise it early and sort of recommit as as a region to the principles that I think we had worked hard to build consensus around. And that's going to, frankly, it's probably going to put us in a bit of an awkward position, because at the same time we're having a big discussion about the needs of the district and the tension between those needs and what's actually available to fund the district. That's going to be the big question, and about what is a sustainable year-to-year increase. we're gonna also wanna have this other discussion around, you know, what's a fair and equitable way to assess towns. And inevitably, at least in the short term, that discussion is gonna put us in a position where the result of that is that we're gonna be asking for a process that produces a smaller percentage increase for our town than it will for at least Pelham and Leverett, maybe not Amherst, we'll see. And that's gonna be, you know, people are not gonna wanna have that in those communities. I don't think they're gonna be that excited to have that conversation with us. I think they're gonna wanna say, like, let's figure out what we can live with in terms of an increase for the district and apply it across the board to all communities.
That's not a new problem, that's, that'd be the only thing I'd point out, that's, as we know, that discussion.
Yeah.
Well, and as far as building consensus or getting to a certain place, as soon as you turn over the memberships of the board,
Yeah.
you lose it all.
Right.
You lose all the institutional memory.
Yeah.
And then you have all these new people panicking and working at odds with what was in the past.
Right.
That's gonna be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a lot.
And, you know, look, it's certainly not out of the question that a town like Amherst, probably more likely, maybe Leverett, might ask to, as part of the strategy to make FY26 work for them, they might ask to go back to a different kind of an assessment method, one that's, you know, closer to the, you know, the per pupil method. And so we should be prepared for that. And, you know, the good news is that we have a lot of consistency within our membership of our boards, and we have a clear message, I think, that we worked on over a long period of time. And we, like, despite, you know, different sort of viewpoints within our communities, we spoke with a kind of clear voice about why a modified statutory method was the right approach for the region to take. And so we have the arguments, so I'm not worried about us being able to communicate that, but.
And there was acknowledgement through that process that there would be years where it would be tough.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't unacknowledged.
Right.
What's your sense of this letter? I mean, what are they asking, if anything? What's Amherst asking us?
I think they're asking the region to do something that they haven't done, I think, to date, at least to their satisfaction, which is to really prioritize programming and commit to saying, these are the essential aspects of our educational program experience, and articulate what kind of, a sense of what are the highest priorities, and to acknowledge that some things are going to have to be cut. And so that's going to require some careful thought that only the region can do, because that's their responsibility, right? That we can't, like, none of our boards can go to them and tell them, nor should we, that, like, we think this is essential and this other thing should go, right? So that's their responsibility, but they are going to need to present a list of priorities, both in terms of educational programming, administrative, infrastructure, positions, and are going to have to do something that's really quite painful, which is to say these are the most important, critical aspects of our,
And the region sort of did the broad sweep and said student-facing,
right,
period.
Right.
And that was because they didn't want to weigh in
Right.
on each individual program either.
Yeah.
But student-facing turned out to be a pretty broad brush. And
Yeah.
I believe it's going to have to come through another process where it identifies something in a different way. And they are, I mean, they're new, and they didn't feel it was their position to say that. So maybe with a new superintendent and a little more experience, and we're at this place, and they will be able to come up with a different way of prioritizing that will have more better effects.
And then look, the public's gonna enter this conversation at some point as well, too, right? And they're gonna, again, I mean, like, they're gonna, understandably, people are gonna be unhappy because there are gonna be real cuts on the table, and they're not gonna be, you know, cuts that are just in a budget, right, that aren't really meaningful. They're gonna be meaningful cuts, and people are gonna react to that and are gonna defend it and ask. And so
Overrides.
that's,
And it may be the Northampton solution, which is an override.
Right,
Put it in front of the voters and an override.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And that might happen, but.
But the key is starting this earlier, so we're not like in
But
February.
I guess what I was
March,
asking,
look at it,
is there a
yeah.
sense that, should we be having a dialogue with the towns first, or
The
wait for the town, and sort of a sped up process, but.
Well,
should
I think this meeting that
Yeah,
Rita was talking about is.
so they
gonna have
asked,
to be-
Lynn Griesmer asked me and AJ just to have this informal conversation.
Right, I
And I
guess
think they're
that's what I'm
doing it with the
asking.
others,
Yeah,
the other
that-
communities too, just to say, where are you guys? And, you know, I don't think it would be a bad idea, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but, to talk about the assessment method
Yeah.
upfront,
Yeah.
to just raise it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, the
if
select
we
board
don't,
raise it.
yeah, if we don't,
No, I
if we
agree.
don't address that, then later on,
Right.
well, you didn't say anything,
Right,
you know?
yeah.
You didn't tell us that
No,
this was,
I think addressing
you know,
it's a
gonna
good
be a
idea.
deal killer for you. But, you know, overall, I think it's good. There is a structural deficit, and
Yeah.
everybody acknowledged that, you know, through this last budget process, and we gotta deal with it. And so we don't know exactly what's gonna happen, but I think
Yeah.
we're supportive of Amherst
Yeah.
going through this process, right? And
Yeah, I mean, and certainly, we've been wanting an earlier process, a clear schedule of the budget process.
really late.
And we've been wanting those conversations to start much earlier.
Yeah.
So it is good, it seems pretty clear that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's one small aspect of this letter that I think is I'm not crazy about, which is this idea that they want this $355,000 to be removed from the base.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
saw a couple mentions of that. And I just think
Yeah.
that's, you know, that's kind of that doesn't make any sense, right? It's like every town has an assessment. It's their process to determine how to fund that assessment. The fact that they chose ARPA funds and not recurring funds was like a decision they made for whatever set of reasons, right? It's like the idea that any one town should be able to say, well, when you develop your budget, can you remove this source of, you know, that's a crazy precedent, I think.
Yeah.
And so,
So the other precedent that's always been crazy to me is the Amherst base is saying, we have a 2.5% increase. I mean, whatever, that's their number.
yeah.
You know, we don't say that
Yeah.
our number, you know, whatever, sort of nor does Leverett or Pelham. It's
Yeah.
like,
I think also the region needs to be given credit for the kind of turmoil they faced with replacing Mike Morris and Doug doing 2 jobs, and it was very chaotic.
Yeah.
And it could be better
Yeah.
this coming year.
Yeah.
They fought through a hard year, and
Yeah.
the track and all of those pieces.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and it's not a great position. It's hard to make difficult decisions when you know you're gonna have a brand new superintendent who's coming in, and they're gonna have to live with it. And I think I understand the desire to say, this is something really you want your new superintendent to kind of weigh in on, so that,
Yeah, I
there's some
feel
logic to
like
that.
We are now in a new how to run it over in the new
Yeah,
fiscal year. So,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
We'll report back on the conversation.
So it doesn't include FinCom people, it's just Select Board, Grismer, and.
Yeah.
No, it's AJ.
Okay.
It's just kind of an informal, like, let's
That's fine with
just,
me, I just wanted to know there was one
Yes,
FinCom, because in
yes.
some towns, FinCom isn't in the same role.
Right.
But in this
Right.
town, it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
good.
yeah. And that's happening on Monday at 11 o'clock.
oh, that's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Awesome.
Just a Zoom meeting, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
AJ.
AJ.
All right.
Thanks, AJ, appreciate
Sorry I
it.
can't stick around for the rest of the
Okay.
Oh,
All right, so we'll move on to the select board review of the voting bylaw, voting bylaw.
Voting.
Voting bylaw. And I believe the history around this coming to us is because of an event down on the lake involving a motorboat. And this is the review. I'm just trying to find it here. There we go. Personal watercraft.
yeah, got it.
So there were two pieces to this. It was the personal watercraft and then,
There was a, what do you call it, personal watercraft, and then there was persons and boats. It's
Right.
the persons and boats, that's most
okay.
applicable here.
Okay,
The other,
watercraft in person.
yeah, I just
Okay.
included it because it's similar, but
Okay.
Okay.
it's just exclusion.
And it originally was voted in 1973 and has had several updates over the course of years, last being 2014, if I'm
Yes.
reading that correctly. Okay. All right. Again, I think the history behind this coming to us was the fact that there was that accident down at the lake, and that there's some concerns revolving around that and motorboats on the lake.
And
So,
that some people were unaware that we had a bylaw at all. So I think that's another issue we have to deal with, is how to make sure
we know that this is.
but that people are aware of
Okay.
it.
All right. I know I read through this. I did a little well, it's not investigation. I did a little asking questions of the last time there was a motorboat accident involving personal injury in a similar way. And the nearest anyone could tell me was it was over 40 years ago that had occurred. So it's been a long swath, thankfully. It's been a long swath between similar accidents. So not that there hasn't been emergency needs at the lake in the past. So that was something that prompted me to look into it anyway.
I guess my question would be, I see a number of folks from the lake area, if we could hear beyond the town bylaw. Obviously we have this town bylaw, it has speed limits, it has, it can't
Directional.
be directional, you have to be outside 150, or you're within 150 feet, no water skiing. Is there more that we need to do beyond making sure that somehow this information, I guess two things, that this information gets disseminated to people, and then I guess it's the enforcement is the other big question, because it's like, who's responsible? We have a police department with a funky little boat out here, and we have the environmental police. But I would imagine that on, busy weekends, we don't always have, that there's nobody on the lake doing enforcement.
That's true.
And this boat hasn't left the backyard in 3 years.
Okay, all right, so forget about our little boat back here. So it'd be good to hear, I don't know if anybody from the lake wants to address kind of what can we as a board
I see Jennifer. Jennifer?
I don't think she heard you.
Oh, Jennifer, go ahead. You can unmute.
Hi. So I just want to thank the select board for putting this on an agenda, and I'm so happy to see so many neighbors at the meeting. I think my main wonderment is 10 years out, when the diversity of uses at the lake has changed quite a lot. We have a lot more swimmers. We have a lot more stand-up paddle boarders, some with adults and just tiny children on them. We have different sizes and powers of speedboats. And I'm just saying, best practices wise, is it a reasonable thing to say, in 10 years out, do these bylaws that we have, do they do they address all the safety needs, you know, of boaters and swimmers and paddlecraft and everything? So I was hoping to suggest that a review committee of the bylaw, in light of changing conditions, might be worthwhile. And maybe the bylaw would never change, and maybe it would, but I was hoping for some kind of a review, just as a best practices kind of thing. Thank you.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Oh, I'm sorry. Linda.
Thanks again for reviewing this. I just wanted to say, and I think Jennifer's aware of this, quite a number of years ago, when I was still working in the assessor's office, so that's more than 14 years ago, and actually it might be before Becky came, the question of motorboats versus non-motorized boats came up. And investigation showed that back in the 1950s, there was, the state gave to Shutesbury $50,000 to purchase the rights to the dam to keep the lake level up sufficiently for power boating. And the question was raised, would that need to be repaid to the state if power boating were banned? That was just one thing. Now, the second thing is, you're correct that the Lake Wyola Association keeps pretty close track of what goes on the lake safety-wise. There's a safety committee, and we've been on that in the past. And I do have to say that there have been quite a number of rescues on the lake using powerboats that could not have been done with a kayak, a canoe, a rowboat. We've had several people overboard. I think it was last year or the year before, we had 2 canoers who didn't know how to swim. They were wearing inadequate life vests. They went over, they were literally rescued from drowning by one of the power boaters around the lake. So there's a lot of, and we've done such an amazing job. It's really sad that sometimes you get somebody who is a bit of a bad actor and likes to perhaps imbibe before voting. And you're right that it would be nice to have more police presence perhaps on the lake, or environmental police on the lake, especially when it's very busy. But for the most part, people self-regulate on the lake pretty well. And you can see that by the fact that there have been so few accidents.
Thank you. Tracy?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for calling on me. I don't believe, with a couple people that I've heard speaking, I think there's a sense that we are looking for banning of speedboats. And that's not, I mean, I've heard talk of that through the years since I've been here, but that's really not where I know a few of the folks that are on this meeting and I are really at. The issues that we have are that a lot of people don't want to go out on the lake, especially on the weekends, but during the summertime when the speedboaters are here, because they predominantly are lakefront residents that are predominantly folks that are here just in the summertime. And so that's when the activity clearly is higher, plus it's the summer. But there's more speedboats. We don't have a horsepower limit, so we have very high, I've heard that there's actually some boats out there with 150 horsepower. I believe that to tow a skier, especially at 30 miles an hour, I think the research I've done, and it's a little confusing to me, but I think it's definitely under 45 horsepower necessary to pull a skier. But the other issue is that the lake being so small, and especially if there are areas that you can't walk ski in because there's an island on one end, the cove at the other end. In the state of Massachusetts, you can't have speed in a lake that's 75 acres or less. This is a 128 acre lake, but if you cut out the areas that the speedboaters couldn't even ski in, then it makes it smaller. So it's really hard to accommodate passive recreation, which would include fishing boats, kayaks, canoes, swimmers, paddleboarders. And now we also have the library program. The town has put in the passive boat launch over on Merrill. We have just a lot more activity, and it's really hard to share at the same time. My proposal, because I've done some research and found that other lakes, especially ones that are small, they limit the time. So instead of sunrise to sunset for speedboaters, there's a more restricted time where what I've seen more commonly is 10 to 4, 11 to 5, that the speedboaters can be out there. That would mean that anybody else could go out there too, but it's just not as ideal because the wakes create waves that, like, my daughter was a lifeguard at the beach, state beach, and kids get knocked over by the wakes that are, you know, right in the shallow water because the boats, the horsepower is higher on a lot of these boats. And the wake boats especially, I've heard that there's up to 10 of them out there, which really technically need to be out 500 feet from the shore. And that's pretty hard to do at Lake Wyola. Plus they create a lot of erosion. So, you know, that's kind of looking at some ideas for a balance, I think is more in line with what most folks that are not speedboaters are looking for. And I'm sort of hoping that the people who are speedboaters could sort of see that point of view, that perspective, and we can move towards each other rather than having a battle, which I understand is what happened last time this issue came up.
Carol?
I echo Jennifer's thanks to the select board for putting this on the agenda. And I just want to reiterate a couple of things that the ask is to set up a committee to study the current bylaws, study the conditions and the usage of Lake Wyola, and to see where that comes out in a fair and equitable situation for a multi-use recreational gem that is Lake Wyola. And I think I agree with Tracy that this is not a either or kind of situation. I'm a paddler. I limit my paddling, especially on weekends, because of the speed and the confusion of a lot of the usage during the summer months. And I know that there are many people both around the lake and in town, and other people in other towns that would ordinarily come to swim or paddle just won't, don't want to risk that. And I think that the safety record is due in part to one. I think the association has done a good job trying to do as much education as possible. And I think there are most people are respectful when they're going around and using the motorboats, but not everybody, and not everybody all of the time. But I think there has been a change, and during COVID especially, we could see all the kayakers and all the swimmers and that were coming here to recreate and get outside with families and just for fitness and whatever. And I think there has been a change in the last 10 years of the usage. So the question, would be, is there a fair and equitable bylaw situation so everybody has a chance to do the recreation safely according to what they want to do? And and it shouldn't be that paddlers have to stay away all day on the weekends because there's too many motorboats. And I like the idea of different time slots. And it doesn't mean that anybody has to be off the lake at any time. The motorboats can be on the lake, but just not speeding around. So there might be the 5 miles an hour. And in the 20 years I've been here, many of the neighbors are only wanting to go 5 miles an hour. And that would be more than welcome, just as it is after sunset. So I think a committee that could really look at all facets and have an equitable updating of the bylaws if they deemed it necessary is a fantastic idea after 10 years.
I think Carol worked on the last update. Okay. I see Linda and Jennifer again.
I just wanted to point out, association does have sort of a courtesy law. I can't say it's a law, but it's a courtesy consideration. We don't power up the power boats until 8 o'clock in the morning. So even though the power boats could be on after sunrise, you'll pretty much notice that they don't start doing any water skiing or anything of that nature until 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's kind of an unwritten rule. That's something that the Lake Association tries to encourage everybody to follow. Not everybody is a member of the Lake Association either. So that is also one issue. And secondly, the power boats try to do a pretty good job of staying within the limits that the bylaws mandate. So they stay away from the edges of the lake. And it's true that waves can be a bit of an obstacle for somebody who is new on a paddleboard or whatever. But any of the power boaters also are paddle boarders. In addition, if you begin to restrict the later part of the day from boaters, then everybody who works can't get some boating time in except on the weekends.
Or paddlers.
True.
I'm gonna take Matt since he hasn't said anything yet. Matt?
Hey there, thanks for calling on me. I'm not sure if my video is on here or not, but one of the things I think is important is education. So what we can't control, I think everybody said some good things about the people on the lake policing and trying to help educate people who don't know what they're doing, but we do get a fair amount of people that don't live on the lake or around the lake. And there used to be a large sign at the boat ramp where it kind of stated all the bylaws. So I think education is kind of a primary factor here, because we do get people, whether it be fishermen or other power boaters, that come into the lake because it is public water. They're allowed to just come in and put their boats in, but they don't know the rules. So the majority of times that we're out on the lake and we kind of self-educate and police the lake, it's people going the wrong way around the lake. We go approach them and educate them. We've had swimmers come off of the public beach, swim right out into the middle of the lake. Very hard to see when you're a boater. So we've gone out, try to educate them, make sure they know they have to stay within 150 feet or have a buoy or a trail boat following them when they're going from shore. So I think there's an education piece here that needs to probably take place. That's probably very simple. A large sign that restates the bylaws at the boat ramp is probably priority number one, because the one that's there, the LWA doesn't have rights to put anything up at the boat launch. That's Shutesbury property, not LWA property. Like a porcelain sign or a laminated sign of greater structure would maybe be very helpful too.
Oh, somebody, who froze? Is that me?
Oh, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
I crashed.
Okay, I'm still on as co-host, so.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know that the lake just lost power, so that's why Matt went away. We have a generator here, but everyone around the lake just lost power, so we might want to give it a minute to.
Oh, that's a drag.
Okay, well, maybe
So why
we
did I go?
do have quite a bit of information.
Yeah.
And since there's no power, I think we should just stop the conversation here since they're not able to participate and they're all gone.
That's crazy.
So hopefully it's nothing too bad. Oh, well, yeah, it might be. It's a thunderstorm. So
Getting rain now?
yeah. So we shall move on, but this is a great idea.
Yeah, I think just, the idea of a committee. Another committee, it's too bad it can't be a subset of the stormwater group, but what do you think, yes?
That there's a lot of overlap if you look at if you put certain frames on it in terms of private, public, and.
It's really different.
Yeah,
it's totally different.
I mean, they do probably the stormwater, the boats do go in.
I can see why a person might think that, so I mean, I don't know if it's the right.
So, I mean, maybe we can sanction a committee to make and then bring something, an update to town meeting. I think that's
Maybe for them to start now and when all the summer people are there so they can get.
Is this a committee we're going to appoint?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
So, I don't know if there's like a mailing list of, I don't know how we get back to all the folks who were here.
We have a list of the people that were in the meeting.
Okay.
So we can get back to those folks.
All right, so do we want to take a vote about establishing?
Sure. I think that's the way to go.
Okay.
Just someone to look at some ones to look at this current bylaws.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we establish a committee to look at the bylaw on watercraft and persons using Lake Loyola.
Okay.
Second.
Do you know how many members you want?
No, but I think what I can do is.
I think there was a committee, it was reformed in 2014. We can look at what they did.
Yeah.
Okay. As a starting point, just.
So we can confirm a charge and
bring
a
the charge to the
structure
next
of the committee.
What about the other bylaw vote?
I don't think we need
personal
to-
watercraft. That's
just-
when they.
yeah. That's.
They banned
Steve's-
them.
Yeah.
That was 100 people storming a select board meeting.
So that's irrelevant, that's an irrelevant bylaw at this point?
It's relevant, it excludes those things from the lake.
Okay.
And the reason it could be relevant, there could be other things you might want to exclude.
Completely.
So both should probably
Jennifer's
be
here.
reviewed.
Jennifer, we're gonna wrap this up, but what do we actually?
No, we did, we started talking, so I was waiting.
Okay, sorry.
So, all in favor of establishing.
We lost our power down here. So-
Yeah, we heard.
Okay.
So
All right,
we
so
are,
do you have
we're
time for
voting to
public
establish.
comment?
We
Hang
are,
on, they're all coming back. We can
Okay.
announce at that point. Hold on, give me 1 second.
we have a motion to appoint a committee to look at the bylaw and recommend updates for this next, probably annual town meeting. And Becky, maybe you and I can just work on a very basic outline with
And
the
I'll-
charge, a number of members and.
Because there's so many, it might be, I think 7, just because there's more
Right.
interested parties.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Farrell, aye.
Stalker,
Makepeace O'Neill, okay, great, thank you. Sorry
Thank
you
you.
all lost
Yes.
your electricity. Can hear it thundering now here too.
You can.
Yes, hear it outside. Okay, so now we will be having our town administrator updates. Thank you all for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, before our power goes out.
I can't get back.
Okay, so town administrator updates, I'm gonna keep it brief just because it's a little bit late. Our FY '23 audit is underway. They started last week collecting information. I just want the select board aware that we will be doing an FY '23. We had tried to get this done during FY '24, the schedules of the auditor, it's coming in late. We also have we will, because of the stipulations made in the library grant, we will need to do annual audits for FY '23, FY '24, and FY '25. So we will be doing the FY '24 audit before the end of the year. We're hoping to schedule it closer to the fall if possible. I know there's some other special town meeting issues that are open, like the private duty detail account for the police, and this one, potentially we might need additional funding for the FY '24 than what I had originally set aside. So I'm putting in the seed of your minds that we might have to have a special town meeting coming up before winter. Our fire chief has been upgraded from light office duty to being able to take fire calls with a weight limit of 35 as his limitation. He's not to lift anything more than 35 pounds for the next month or two, and he'll be released from, and then it says then no restrictions at all. So he is getting better. The building committee is actively monitoring the school trim and painting project. The specifications in the project details are a little bit more complicated because they call for wrapping of PVC around some of the boards, and we were doing very specific replacement of different siding, clappers, and trim boards. And it's so it's a little bumpy start, but we're starting to get on a roll. Building committee will stay involved, and we still hope to stay on schedule. And then the last thing is we have a public records request that has kind of underscored an issue that's come up a few times for the select board, that of having Google Gmail accounts for all volunteers for the town. We have a current public records request that someone is demanding something that we don't have access to. They've identified that an ex-volunteer has it in their possession, and I've written a letter requesting, return of all the emails. But we don't have, whether that'll happen or not is not under our ability to control. So we want to we hope that we can shift to a policy where all new volunteers, especially, and all employees have their own email address on our server.
We talked about this, but there was always the comeback of the cost, and I said, it's just the
I don't
cost of
think
doing
we
business.
start with new,
I think we,
across the
right,
board.
Everybody,
Yeah.
that's right,
Yeah.
everybody should have.
I'm just bringing it back up.
Yeah.
We were right the first time, second, and third time. We haven't set the funds aside to do it. That would be a special town meeting. I think we need annually another $7,000. It's under $7,000.
And also should have admin access so that it can be gone in and gotten by the record.
Who would have admin access, the town clerk?
The records
Yeah, we can
officer.
figure out who has that
Yeah, the
access.
town-
So it should be
town.
someone
It
who,
should be
yeah.
the records
Yeah.
officer, and then
Yeah.
the police chief is for
So
another.
it should be, that person
records
can go into
officer.
all employee, all volunteer, anything with Shutesbury.org
Mhm.
to get whatever the request is without having to engage the person.
Yeah,
who has it.
I'm totally for it. Yeah.
So we need to
Great
get
idea.
potentially a special town meeting. We need a policy, just outlining it with very basic, but it's in action. I hope we can follow through with this time. So Rita doesn't have to remind me it didn't happen a fourth time.
That's a good idea.
And
Just bite the
that's
bullet.
the last item on my,
So Becky, you think this special town meeting would be in the fall sometime,
yes.
like
Yeah.
October, November?
Well, to access any free cash, if the finance committee, is hoping to do that,
Yeah,
it has to be after it's certified. We
Yeah.
can't access free cash from July 1st
Okay.
until certification.
and that typically
September.
happens,
It's in November,
okay.
and we can see how this year goes, which, if we can
So you
move
could look
quicker.
at maybe where that might fall.
Right.
You go.
By the tentative select board schedule. Okay. So it would probably be in November then? Okay. Or early December,
Hopefully early November, we would
early
hope.
November, okay. Before election day.
It can't
It
be,
can't be the 5th.
Right.
so end
I
of
noted that on the
October or
schedule.
the middle of November, because we
Okay.
don't want to do that on election.
Well, and you want to do it before Thanksgiving, so because then it's just getting over.
The week of the
Okay.
19th looks great.
Okay,
Is that already a select board meeting?
then Tuesday, November 19th, yes. Okay. Sounds good to me.
So we want to pick that date as a tentative date?
Tentative, yeah. And there was also some discussion, one of the other special town meeting things was the possibility of money for the track coming from CPA, so
Oh, yeah.
that there were 2 CPA requests. And they haven't gone before the committee, one for the track and one for gazebo for the signboard, to cut some.
Roof for the signboard. Pergola.
The pergola, whatever it's called. It would have to be, protective. So it'd have to be closed.
Would it
Anyway,
have, would it have
it's
to
not-
have
I don't know, I mean,
plexiglass all around
no,
it?
I'm not going there because this is not my, it's not my application. I think it's the historical commission is gonna apply.
And you plan on doing both of them together early on that
Well,
schedule?
what the CPC, I mean, the committee is gonna be meeting, I think, in August, is that, we can take stuff outside of cycle.
Yeah.
So it would mean that we'd have sort of a, consider a couple of applications outside of our cycle and then do our regular cycle. It can be done.
Yeah.
We totally make our own schedule.
Excellent. That'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay. All right. That was a good segue, Erin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just have the executive session.
Yes, yes. So we will be going into executive session.
Say goodbye to Tom.
Bye,
So,
Tom.
bye, Tom. Sorry.
Bye, Tom.
Don't get wet out there.
Yeah.
Worse,
Drive safely.
watch for lightning.
Sounds true. Have a good night.
Thank
You
you very
too.
much.
Thank you, take care.
And,
Right. So we are going to go into executive session for reason number 3.
Melissa, just,
Yes?
you are the one that,
Yep, we have to go into it and then I'll shut the recording off.
okay.
So we are going into executive session for reason number 3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting would be detrimental to the effect on the government's litigation position. Litigation specific to complaint received from polls regarding Shutesbury solar bylaw with special counsel, town council, and planning board representative, and not to return to open meeting. Thanks.
I'm gonna end the regular meeting.
Yes, roll call vote.